Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the MemesteticA online program. My name is Valentina Tanni. I am an art historian and I am also the curator of this series of online conversation. The MemesteticA talks are produced by Aksioma, Institute for Contemporary Art in Ljubljana, and this program of talks is also part of the 11th edition of a larger series of events called Tactics and Practice. Throughout this series of talks, we will discuss the world of memes, of internet memes. We will try to analyze participatory culture with a particular focus on aesthetics and visual languages. So our goal, the goal of the whole series, is to investigate, of course, with the help of our guests. There are artists, critics, and researchers. So to investigate the role that this new cultural system has within contemporary society. Today, I have the pleasure to host a member of the Slovenian collective Smetnjak. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And before we actually begin our conversation, I'm going to briefly introduce you to our online audience. Smetnjak is an anonymous collective from Slovenia. They have been mixing memes with art and theory for over a decade now. And Smetnjak's work has been featured in many magazines and websites internationally. And they are also opening their first exhibition these days at Aksioma in Ljubljana. And the exhibition is titled Everything Must Go. So welcome again. And the first question I would like to ask you is a ritual one. In fact, I'm asking a similar question to all of our guests. I basically want to know something about the origins of your research on internet memes and also about the artistic use of internet memes, because you study memes, but you also produce memes yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into studying and making memes? What drove you into the world of memetics?
Yes, it's probably the other way around, right? Memes are in fact studying and researching us, don't you think? And they really don't leave us any choice. They sort of plug us into this dopamine circuit. We become their media, their vessels. And that's it. So the beginning of our production, not to be too nostalgic about it, was the Slovenian uprising in 2012, which was a series of massive street demonstrations and protests, first against all elites, even not just political ones, but also like cultural elites, you know, all sorts of elites. So Smetnjak was kind of part of this, also in this catalyst way. Our memes were, we could say, an integral part of this brewing of displeasure. Unfortunately, or inevitably, it got pretty fast reduced to a revolt against Janez Janša, which was back then the Prime Minister of Slovenia and is also right now the Prime Minister of Slovenia. So that's like the connection between the production of memes in 2012-13 and production of memes that started in 2020 with the rise of the COVID era and this government. The difference between Janez Janša back then and Janez Janša now would be that right now he's this kind of alt-right neo-fascist figure. I would say that changed a lot, also in mimetic sense. You know, sometimes it feels like his whole party read Angela Nagel's Kill All Normies, like a manual. Of course, they haven't. They probably got trained by, I don't know, Bannon people or Orban guys or something like that. But the whole movement of theirs certainly seems very updated. I mean, it doesn't seem like that. It is very updated, very modern, and in that regard, fascinating. There's no point in saying it's not. But of course, at the same time, it's incredibly ugly, repetitive, and ungracefully brutal. What's interesting for us is that János Janša also wrote a manifesto, an explicit manifesto called The War Against Media. In that text, he identified, or even over-identified, to bring into this discussion or identification, which is the kind of legacy of Lacanians in Ljubljana. In this text, he over-identifies with being a frog. He explicitly says we are frogs being cooked in water, which is not hot, which is not boiling, but which is steadily becoming hotter and hotter. So with that was like a direct link for us for the 𝗕𝗵 memes, right? And we immediately started producing all these images, like JJ the Frog, János Janša, JJ the Frog, or JJ the Nordic gamer, as opposed to Nordic gamer, right? The figure saying yes in this kind of Nietzschean kind of sense of the word. Also because of the Noricon, which is like kind of proto-Slovenia. And funnily enough, for the Eternal September, the exhibition which he curated for Aksioma in 2014, we had like this expression, the memes are dangerous, even more than János Janša, right? And the fact is, it's as though he heard this and he became meme. János Janša himself became this virality, like this really efficient neo-fascist process. And that's the fascination of the whole thing. And evidently, we're trying to keep up with this process, this memetic process. It's also that in 2012 and 2013 there was this rush of meme production, and now there is again this rush of meme production. But I would say that this dopamine circuit, which I mentioned at the beginning, became much, much stronger, much, much more irresistible. It's like, we're sharing our memes on our platforms, on IG, Facebook, and Twitter. And once in a while, you come across on your feed, you come across your meme, which you produced, which kind of had like this runaway effect, we just got away from your platforms. And the interesting thing about one meme in particular was that like 10 days later, we saw it on our feed, and the resolution was really, really lower than it was like on the original image. So we were thinking like, okay, a really massive compression of this image happened. What happened actually? And then when we retweeted this, people started saying to us that they got this image through Viber and everything. So like this poor image, right? This was actually a proof of the virality of the image. So in that way, I would say the feedback is like the integral or one of the most significant parts of doing or making memes, as opposed to text, which we're doing in the past, maybe more so. And in that regard, I would like to quote, or we would like to quote Simon Sellers, who wrote Applied Ballardianism, which was also translated at 𝗕. He said at one time that he's not reading books anymore, he reads Twitter, right? And in that regard, I would say also Smetnjak is like reading and producing memes. And that's it for now.
Yeah. So as you said, your memes are most of the time comments on everyday politics, political events, and especially local Slovenian political events. And I read that you said that you try to take things where shit and mediocrity abound and change them towards something kinder and funnier. So I was wondering if you can expand a little bit on this idea. So is it possible to make ugliness and mediocrity beautiful, or I mean, meaningful in some sense? And how do you do it? Which are your tactics to try to achieve this goal of turning shit into something funny and maybe meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, it can be funny, you know, from the start. You don't even have to do anything. It's just unintentional comedy for most of the part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really about like opening another aesthetic dimension. Everything has its own aesthetics, but we like to play with those aesthetics in unpredictable ways. But if we say like turning shit and mediocrity into beauty is something surprisingly easy, you know, like we took like this, you know, we will watch this video of 𝗕ance becoming this character from the movie Drive, right? Which is like Winding Refn's movie, because there's like a big story right now about Slovenia and 𝗕ance presiding the European Union Council. And there was like a small scandal about, or a big scandal here, about the image or the symbol of Black Panther being presented of cufflinks, which will be given as gifts to the European Union senior officials. And people got quite upset about it because this panther in particular is usually associated with neo-Nazis and other fringe vigilante characters. So you can imagine the aesthetics of it is quite cringe. So we wanted to upgrade it, you know, to accelerate it and do something interesting about it, you know, not moralize about it, because, you know, the main argument against Black Panther is that it's a fake symbol, but there's no such thing as a fake symbol. It's just a use or a misuse of a symbol. There's no you know, symbol as that are either all fake or none of them are fake. I mean, at least that's our take on it. So to return to like you say, regarding tactics, for our presentation or text for your Eternal September exhibition, we kind of like, the basis of that lecture was Walter Benjamin's text, The Author as Producer, right? And kind of we are now going against the grain of this text, you know. The basic point of the text would be that it's too easy to make things beautiful. You know, like he says that you can make even the most abject poverty beautiful with the technology and the techniques that are available. You know? And then he goes into criticizing modishness of the whole thing. You know, like the fashionability of the trendiness of the whole thing. Our problem with that would be that, you know, precisely the reason why Walter Benjamin today is perhaps more contemporary than all the other Frankfurt School boys would be that he was the most modish and the most zeitgeistish and the most hipsterish and the most advanced and the least rigorous, the least dogmatic of them. And the most fringe part of them was Walter Benjamin. He was like this marginal character of the scene. So I would say that we are on his side despite him, you know, like we would say precisely the reason when he says, I want to be dialectical materialist, and he fails at that. That's his best thing, is the best thing about him. So, you know, and there's another quote which we are really not fans from his work, of course, classic work, the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, where he says, and I quote, mankind's self-alienation has reached such a degree that it can experience its own destruction as an aesthetic pleasure of the first order. This is the situation of politics, which fascism is rendering aesthetic, right? I mean, it's one of those quotes that even the normie left-wingers can refer to or love to refer to. You know, it's not one of the it's not one of his fringiest moments, for sure, right? And we would say, like, we would add to this quote another quote from probably more controversial film called To Be or Not to Be by Ernst Lubitsch, you know, where the Polish actor posing as a Gestapo guy talks about concentration camps, and he says, we do the concentrating and the Poles do the camping. And of course, the Poles are substitutes for Jews, right? It's not like, I mean, the Poles were in concentration camps, but probably that was not like the first thing. So if we combine these two quotes, we could say, no, right now the government does the fascism, and Smetnjak does the aestheticization. You just put this process, apart and make something happen. So it's a match made in heaven and hell. So like going beyond criticism. Yeah, like going beyond criticism. Why this cap? Why in these cursed times produce a cap saying Magyar make America hungry again? Why do this? But it's like this hyperstitional sense, magical thinking kind of way. It's like making fiction into reality, but with this like point from Borges's story, The Secret Element, where the main character is about to be executed the next day. And that night before, he imagines all the worst scripts, like the worst executions, the most painfully imaginable, the most dreadful execution. Why? Because he has like this theory, and we all have it, that whatever we imagine about the future, it never happens. So he does these all horrible scenarios in order for them not to happen. But then he has a change of mind and says, what if this precisely the most horrible thing that I imagined happened? So, you have like this ambivalence about memes, also the power of the false, like Nietzsche, Deleuzian kind of way, like not fake news, but false news. Memes are producing all these false narratives, but it's not enough to say they're fake or they're post-truth, because actually it's about producing adequate images in this kind of 𝗕𝗏𝗃 kind of way, which has like important poetics, not just in the 70s. You have like this, and 𝗕𝗏𝗃 lies a lot. He falsifies all the time. He fabricates things all the time. But it's still, Deleuze says he's the most metaphysical director, whatever happened to metaphysics. So in the end, I would say, is this fight against government? For sure it is. But is it just that? I would say no. It's like producing something that is ambivalent and suspect, for sure. And even, you cannot control what you do, you cannot control the effects. So in that sense, I would say it's kind of like a Baillardian cautionary tale, which at the same time does not want to, to lift its foot from the gas pedal.
Yeah, and maybe, are you maybe referring or being inspired also by the Situationist? While you were talking, I was thinking about 𝗕𝗏𝗃, so this idea of taking things, pictures and contents and hijacking the meaning in some way. Is there something you are also inspired by?
I mean, inevitably so, but I wouldn't say today. I mean, I'm pretty sure 𝗕𝗏𝗃 would be like something closer to accelerationism today. He wouldn't be talking about doing something against capital. It's something to do, Smetnjak does something against the government, not against the capital. Like we have like smaller fights to fight right now, and I wouldn't be, I mean, we wouldn't be so pretentious to say it's got anything to do with capitalism. It's just like this local experiment, which is like in some way incredibly stupid, but also fascinating, which kind of, has to stop because it's really bad in so many ways. So in that way, we're all normies, they just want to produce boring, stupid liberals out of us. That's the whole point, I think, because you can't ignore that or tolerate it.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the exhibition that you're working on, and I read that you are not just printing memes and showing memes printing them on conventional materials like paper or canvas, but I read that you are placing the images also on objects, like, I don't know, pillows or towels and other common kind of ordinary objects. And I was wondering, is that a comment on the commercialization of everything that we are experiencing, talking about capital right now, and especially online, when everything basically becomes a product and everything is also sometimes automatically transformed into an object, maybe by an AI that just takes a picture and sticks the picture on objects. I don't know, maybe you can tell us a little bit about this format choice that you pick for the show, and maybe something about the show in general.
I mean, the automation itself is beautiful, you know, because today meme production is just mediating between all these apps. You know, you sort of, you know, you have a designer trying to invent aesthetics of the SDS party, which is like the ruling party of JJ, and then you have like the stupidest app turning things into like this kind of you know, like beachside like towels thing, and you just get the SDS aesthetics like right there. You just have to choose the right, you know, the right filter. You know, it's incredible. Like the automation is really, it's really like then curating with all these technologies and apps, getting the results, having like some intention which is unaware, and then it happens when it clicks with you and the, you know, the image or the filter. But you know, I wouldn't say it's a comment, for sure not. It's just doing it. You know, it's like the immanence of things. It's like the pure immanence of things. And this putting things on towels, I know it's a default choice. All the meme producer right now, you know that better than us. It's a beautiful book you have written. You know, all the meme producers are putting their memes on pillows, doormats, towels, t-shirts, sliders. You know, putting their memes there. It's sort of it's like this post-ironic, you know, like trying to survive and having a laugh at the same time. It's I mean, not even trying to survive, just having fun with putting things on and seeing the feedback, you know, because the feedback is really integral part of production, for sure. And I would say that, like, strategically, not just tactically, it has something like the whole commercialization thing has to do with our, like, one of the favorite movies we have is like this Pablo Larraín's movie about Chile called No. And it's about this situation in 1988 in Chile, where there was like this plebiscite about Pinochet continuing to be president or not. And that's like a parallel situation with Slovenia, not just because of the polarization, which is like 50-50, but also because in 1988, we were like, you know, preparing to exit Yugoslavia, or like Yugoslavia was falling to pieces. And we had like really like almost the same propaganda video as Chile, which was exactly pro-capitalist. So we have like this yes and no campaign. And the main character of the movie is Rene Saavedra. He's like an ad man, creative director. And he gets, you know, like political parties ask him to do the campaign. And he does this no campaign, which is against Pinochet, right? He does it in kind of airy, breezy, entertaining, rainbowish, you know, like there's a rainbow logo on it, you know, popish, very lifestyle, very affirmative, right? The no is affirmative, no is yes. Really like pro-capitalist, really modern campaign. And the yes campaign, the pro-Pinochet campaign, is really old propaganda techniques. It's negative, it's reactionary, it smells of, it reeks of dictatorship and death. You know, they even have one video where there is a baby carriage getting rolled over by a steamroller. You know, it's like the worst images imaginable. You know, if you want to lose, you use them. So that's like the interesting thing about it is that precisely this neo-fascist Slovenian government, when there was like 40 years of Slovenian independence, had like exactly the same ceremony, which looked exactly the same as this yes campaign, Pinochet's campaign back in 1988. It was the same. I mean, the techniques were the same, the off was the same, everything was the same. So our point, we wrote a text about it, was that in order to fight this, you have to be airy, you have to be breezy, you have to be pro-capitalist, you have to be pro-commercial, you have to be updated, you have to be modern. And that was also our call was against the cultural sector, which are of course enemies of the government, but they have the same kind of attitude towards commercialization, towards markets, towards everything, you know. So I was like, our call was like, we have to have more pop, you know, in order to survive this. So we were kind of fighting both mentalities at the same time.
Thank you very much. And thank you for accepting our invitation again. Thank you for this very interesting conversation. And of course, I am also going to thank our online audience. Thank you for joining in and listening to us, and see you next time.
Thank you for inviting us. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.